So, welcome back to the Strategic Health Check. Your prescription that you didn't need necessarily didn't know you needed for your health charity to diversify, whether it's to improve whatever aspect they need to improve. Today, I am joined by two very special guests from Against Breast Cancer, Richard Martin and Dr. Mark Powell. So welcome to both of you. Um, how are you, first of all?
We're good. Yeah. Well, speaking for myself anyway, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Thanks for
good.
having us on.
Yeah, thanks, Jose, for having us on today.
Lovely, of course. No, it's my pleasure, and I know how busy your schedules are, and I mean it applies so much across the industry. It's just jam-packed with commitments, and so for you to make time for a little podcast, it really does mean a lot, and it's gonna resonate a lot with our listeners. Now, I'm gonna, you know, hit the ground running straight away with this question. And I think the best person from kind of what we've discussed would probably be Mark to answer this one. Can you tell us about it? I think so many people want to know this. Can you tell us about breast cancer from a medical perspective and how it typically manifests?
Yeah, so typically breast cancer occurs predominantly in females, where up to 1 in 7 women will suffer a breast cancer diagnosis in their lifetime. It's the cells lining the breast ducts typically would um, grow in an uncontrolled way, leading to a small lump or cancer, which can sadly increase and grow in size, and in some cases spread to other parts of the body, such as the liver, lungs, or bone and brain. And that's called secondary or metastatic breast cancer. And that's the mission. The mission of Against Breast Cancer is to tackle the secondary breast cancer.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So this might seem like a really ignorant question, but I think a lot of the general public might have that perspective. To what extent is it different from primary breast cancer or with the non-metastatic breast cancer?
It's typically the same cancer cells that originated in the cells, the ducts of the breast tissue, um, just that those cells have lost certain characteristics that keep them localized to the breast, and they've gained additional features that means they escape into the bloodstream and say reach other parts of the body. So typically they would still, if they were biopsied by clinicians, be considered breast cells, but they're a lot more dangerous once they've spread to other parts of the body. And part of our research is obviously understanding how this happens, how we can detect it earlier, and how that can be treated. Um, Sadly, about 12,000 people per year in the UK do lose their lives from predominantly secondary breast cancer, which is the leading cause of death from breast cancer.
Mm, mm. And in a similar vein, and kind of speaking more broadly about against breast cancer's work, what would you say is unique about against breast cancer's research?
So, Against Breast Cancer was the first charity to focus exclusively on prevention, early detection, and treatment of secondary breast cancer. There may be another charity or two doing that now, but certainly the charity's been looking at secondary breast cancer for over 30 years, nearly 30 years. And we remain small and nimble and fund some incredible research at a small number of research institutions that we might cover in more detail later, but enables us to really have focus within some institutions where we get real synergies from funding multiple researchers at one site. And I'm sure Rich will go on to say more about the wonderful fundraising from our supporters and volunteers. But yeah, our uniqueness is the funding that cutting edge research that really has an impact on current breast cancer care, but also we've got some really exciting developments coming through from the research that we hope will have even more impact, and we can talk about that, I'm sure, as well.
Of course, of course. Well, thank you for your insights there. Rich, on to you, Richard. Can you tell us a bit about how Against Breast Cancer came about? And Mark just said it's been going on for 30. Has it been going on for 30 years, I assume? And how did it all get started, and what's the story of it?
Sure. So actually, it's this year will mark 33 years since the charity came into existence. Our founders, Anthony and Patricia Leatham, brought the charity together in 1993. Anthony was a pathologist at the Middlesex Hospital in London, while Patricia, his wife, was a breast cancer nurse in Oxford. They took it upon themselves to fund Anthony's research into breast cancer survival off the back of seeing how many women, and predominantly how many younger women, were losing their lives having had breast cancer. Patricia started fundraising by selling sweet peas outside their home in rural Oxfordshire.
Oh, wow.
Anthony was able to get national press interested by shaking his collection tin outside Oxford Circus Tube Station in London way back in the early 90s, which wearing a lab coat as a doctor certainly piqued the public interest. And then, funny
Absolutely.
enough, in 1987, The Lancet, the world's leading independent medical journal, published results of Anthony's research, where he identified chemical difference between aggressive and non-aggressive breast cancer cells. So that's kind of where things started. Anthony and Patricia raised £15,000 in their first year of fundraising. And as I say, the charity was founded in 1993. And from those sort of humble beginnings, we now fund research across a significant number of well-respected educational institutions across the United Kingdom.
Wow. Wow. What a story. I can't believe that about rattling coins outside Oxford Circus. That's incredible. That's incredible. What month in if you recall from 1993? Because I was also founded in 1993. So
Well, that is a fantastic question, and one I'd have to get back to you on.
I
I believe it's July, and the reason I say that is because when celebrating our 25th anniversary, we hold in Abingdon, which is where in Oxfordshire, which is where our office is based. We hold a annual event called Paint Abingdon Pink, which is effectively a community fundraising event where we have various stalls and people come to support us and find out more about us as a charity. And when we had our 25th anniversary, I was told that we were quite close to marking the exact date of the inception of the
okay.
charity, and that would have been either in late June or early July. So I would think it's somewhere around then.
Okay. Okay, that's good. That's good. So it's a couple of months older than me. But yeah, so the color, because you just mentioned briefly pink, so is the color of breast cancer and all of these kind of causes, is the associated color pink?
Traditionally, I think the pink ribbon specifically was came about with ribbons being synonymous with cancer in general. It was the pink element of the ribbon that seemed to be universally adopted as the sort of symbol of breast cancer. In our logo, the we use in the word against, we use the pink ribbon as part of our logo. So it is something that has become very synonymous with breast cancer. We'll probably, I'm sure we'll go on to talk about it later on, but as time's gone on, we have tried to acknowledge that it's not only women who are affected by breast cancer, and in that men can get breast cancer. And thankfully, times have changed, but traditionally, pink was seen as more of a feminine color. And that has meant that we have looked at ways in which we can adopt a secondary color palette, and we actually have certain items that we sell on our shop or that we use as fundraising materials that adopts perhaps less traditionally feminine colors. And we have actually got, for example, pin badges that are in different colors. But yes, to answer your original question,
Yes.
typically and traditionally, the pink ribbon is synonymous with breast cancer.
Yes, I thought so, and just from doing my research into your website, I thought it might be in for those listeners listening today or who cannot see me, I am wearing a pink shirt in honor of this amazing charity. But if you're watching on Spotify, then you can check out the shirt and let me know in the comments if you like it. But anyway, moving on and back to the serious things. You mentioned very briefly, actually, just now, the fact that there's a shop and all of this, kind of enterprising kind of aspect. Um, how would you say that ordinary people, or not ordinary people, just anyone, how can they support the work that Against Breast Cancer does?
So we like to think, and hopefully your listeners would agree, that there are lots of different exciting and varied ways that people can support us. We have a website, againstbreastcancer.org.uk, which we'd really encourage listeners to take a look at, with loads of different ways that people might get involved. What we try to do is make sure that it's not always necessarily having to be a monetary ask. We have, for example, a bra recycling service where we have just under 500 bra banks up and down the country in various cafes or doctor surgeries or places of work, offices, where people can simply come and donate their unwanted old bras. And we get a donation of £700 per ton of bras recycled, which basically means that people can donate their old bras in these bra banks. They get sort of distributed predominantly to Eastern Europe, where those that are still in relatively good condition can be repurposed, and those that can't, they are recycled as rag. But through our partners, the Recycling Clothes Company, we're able to get a donation, a significant donation per ton of bras donated. And
Wow.
what's really nice about that is that people don't necessarily have to, particularly in the current climate, they don't necessarily have to make monetary donation to still support us. We also do recycling of stamps, old jewelry, printer cartridges, as well as old coins. So we kind of like to champion getting sponsored to do an event or hosting your own event to generate funds, because it's a nice way of doing something that doesn't necessarily need people to have to put their hands in their pockets at what is a difficult time. Something else that you kind of alluded to is our shop. So we often get donated unused, unworn clothes, which we're able to sell on eBay. So we have our own eBay shop, which again, it means that donors can give us something that they don't necessarily want anymore, that pre-loved clothing. And other supporters can not only give money to support the cause, they can also get something in return. So they have something tangible that they can buy with that money. All the profit goes to us and can go to the research, but they also get a nice dress or a pair of trousers or whatever it might be. So that's again something that's really nice thing for people to be able to do, that give something back. We have a Against Breast Cancer lottery, which again everyone loves to have a chance to win something. So again, all the funds that are donated goes to the research. We work with a partner that allows us to give weekly prizes. So yeah, that's another a nice one to do. And then I suppose there's the kind of traditional charity sponsorship routes, in that we can secure places in various events up and down the country, but also internationally. So we have partnerships with a number of marathon providers. So if people want to do some of the world marathon majors, like Berlin Marathon, Tokyo Marathon, Chicago, London, of course, we have places that we can give to people pledging to fundraise for us, places in events like that. And then, of course, people can create their own fundraising events, and we'd be here to support them in doing that. So if they wanted to do a cake sale, or they wanted to do a sponsored head shave, or whatever it might be, sort of adopting a kind of traditional approach to fundraising, we'd be here with tips and hints and ways to support people in pursuing their sort of fundraising goals. The last thing I just want to touch on quickly in this area is if people are involved in a sports club, we have a really good campaign, or we think it's really good, that can be mutually beneficial for the club as well as for the charity. It's called Play It Pink. And the idea behind it is that clubs, whether that be a cricket club, a football club, a rugby club, a hockey club, you name it, whatever it might be, hosts a fundraiser for us. But they have the option of 50% of the funds being donated to Against Breast Cancer and 50% of the funds being kept by the organisation, because running amateur sport isn't easy, and there's lots of costs involved. And I think something that we found works really well when we're talking to people and giving people ideas about how they might fundraise is to think, what does their community look like and how can things be mutually beneficial? So anyone who might be a member of an amateur sports team, what we felt would attract them is for them to be able to support their club while supporting the charity. It's also really good exposure for clubs in their local communities to be able to show their support for a national charity, which hopefully would potentially encourage them to, it would allow them greater publicity and potential to maybe gain sponsorships and that sort of thing from local places to sort of boost their secondary income as well. So that's a really nice one, called Play It Pink, that I definitely encourage listeners to take a look at if they're interested.
Wow. It sounds like there's a plethora of ways that people can get involved in, and that's what we're looking for. And I will give a reminder at the end, but the website is againstbreastcancer.org.uk, which leads me very nicely on to the to follow-up question is and this one would probably be more tailored towards Mark's expertise. Could you tell me a bit more about the research the Against Breast Cancer funds and how fundraisers make such a difference. Basically, the kind of fundraising that Richard just talked about. How exactly, where exactly does that go, and how is it purposed in a meaningful way?
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah, the hard work of our supporters, volunteers, fundraisers really does make a difference. So we fund cutting edge research at leading institutions. We have a 9-year fellowship program at Oriel College, Oxford, which is just renewed actually, where we have 2 research fellows, one junior and one senior, studying key parts of breast cancer research. When funds are available, we will fund additional seed grants or PhD grants to young career scientists, those that are just maybe starting off and haven't quite got established yet, and they've been really successful. We've just recently given up PhD funding for final year of a PhD. But our core research is at the University of Southampton, which ties in nicely with our Breast Walk Ever Hampshire, that is a fundraising event that Rich might touch on later. But at Southampton, we have 5-year and 10-year programs, as well as a new 3-year fellowship, funding across the whole spectrum of secondary breast cancer research, so from prevention, early detection, and better therapies. So there's a lot covered there, and the University of Southampton is a superb place for research. It's next to the teaching hospital with world-class clinicians. So there's a nice link with real patients, doctors, and the research, all not literally under one roof, but next door to each other. And there's some fantastic science going on there. There's so much to talk about, from better therapies to prevention. But perhaps one of the things we're most excited about, has made the national press, is an early cancer detection test called myOnco. This was called Game Changer by Health Minister Wes Streeting last year. And it's a test that's being developed from Against Breast Cancer funding, from just a small amount of blood, a few drops. It can give an early warning sign for the emergence of cancer of up to 12 of the most common and deadly cancers, including breast cancer. So that's led to the formation of a small company called Xgenera, who are further developing the test. That's the physical test for this early cancer detection test from blood. And part of the Against Breast Cancer funding is we're funding continued research into how this can be used to detect secondary breast cancer at the earliest possible stage. So the plans are this will be quite a low cost test, 150 pounds at most. And at first will be rolled out for high risk individuals who are worried because of recurrence from primary breast cancer, or perhaps those that have a family history of breast cancer. So we're very excited about the potential for that. And credit to it's where the hard work of our fundraisers really has an impact, is that this has led now to an additional 2.4 million grant from the government organization NIHR, National Institute of Health and Care Research, for clinical trials for this myOnco blood test. So it really is showing the seeds of what some might consider a small donation has really led to something bigger with much greater promise to give impact to be thousands or even more people to get benefit from an early cancer detection diagnosis. So that's what we're excited about. But there's so much more research than that, and our supporters and volunteers can hear about the research each year. We have every other year we have lab tours at Southampton University, and In the even-numbered years, such as this one, we have the Against Breast Cancer Research Conference, where people come together to discuss the latest research. Oriel College, Oxford, who kindly host us. So that's where the whole Against Breast Cancer community comes together, and they can chat with the researchers, chat with other fundraisers. It's a really nice event.
Well, yeah, I mean that's a lot there that it seems that can be done really quite eye-opening. One thing that really stood out there was the what was it, the breast walk ever? Uh that just the wording of that is just great. Great. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, of course. So basically, we have been running a breast walk ever since 2014. The concept came from trying to have an event that had low barriers to entry, that people could do without having to take part in loads of training or get loads of kits. We thought, let's do a walk. The first one started in Oxfordshire in 2014. We've been doing them in Hampshire, not far from the University of Southampton, in a village called Hursley, which is just outside Winchester, since 2023. So this year will be our fourth year of Breastwalk Over Hampshire. It's a 12-kilometre half marathon or full marathon distance. They're all walks, so there's no need to run any of them. However, if people are keen runners, we don't turn them away. And people can participate however they'd like to. But we're really fortunate to have some fantastically committed volunteers who will provide encouragement, refreshments at regular intervals. The courses are completely risk assessed and marshaled and signposted. So there's no need for navigation, although maps are provided. And then at the end of the walk, there's complimentary massage as well as your hard-earned medal. Free parking, dogs are welcome too. It's just a really fun day of sort of it's a fun day. And the reason I hesitate is that it's also a really impactful day of reflection as well. So there's a really fun element to it, but also we find that lots of people who participate in the walk are people that have loved ones currently going through a cancer journey, or may have had loved ones who sadly have passed away and are doing it in memory of loved ones. So whilst it is an amazing day of celebration, it's also a really sort of, we find it quite a poignant day of reflection too. So come along, see for yourself what you think. It's on Sunday, the 14th of June. You can get full details on our website, and it's at the IBM Hursley Sports and Social Club, which is in the village of Hursley, just outside Winchester.
Great. Well, thank you, Richard. I will check my calendar if I'm free. I will definitely be there.
Marvelous.
Weather permitting. No, I'm kidding. I would come anyway. But that it just sparked my curiosity there when you said that about it being poignant. Um, what is it like for you personally, but also for those supporters and people who but you specifically, Rich, with fund being the director of fundraising and also be overseeing all of that. What, how do you handle these poignant moments? Because I'm sure if you attend, do you attend the breastwalk ever? Yeah. So, yeah, like you said yourself, it's like a poignant day, and there are moments of reflection. So, d is it? I don't mean that day specifically, but in isolation. But how do you, as a charity, how do you handle the emotional side of breast cancer and cancer more generally and illness? How what's the approach and because it's such a sensitive topic, and that's why I really wanted to have Against Breast Cancer on, because it's so topical. It's a topical topic, for want of a better word, and it's something that we need to raise awareness for. So, how do you deal? This is a bit of a long-winded answer, but what I mean is, like, how do you deal specifically yourself with the emotional side, and then how is it dealt with as a charity? What initiatives are there, if any, and how is that taken care of?
So there's a number of ways in which we as a charity would try and our best to support people that are in such a situation. We are a research charity, so predominantly what we would do is signpost those that are in need of support to support charities. So we would encourage them to talk to organisations like Macmillan to get that expert help and assistance at times of sort of significant emotional need. You touched on the Breast Walk Ever and the amazing power of that community of people is what I think brings people back year after year. It's actually people on the walk having conversations with each other, and that sense of understanding that whilst the situation they find themselves in is horrible and it's tragic and it's really difficult, having people walk alongside them who have had similar experience or are going through similar experience is incredibly powerful. And it's something that they together have much more power and influence to be able to help people than I do, for example. So what we do on the walk as well as elsewhere is try where we can to create community space for people to come together and share their experiences in a way that can be as supportive as possible. So I guess predominantly what we try to do is ensure that people are speaking to the right people. So we're fundraisers. Mark's the research manager, so it's all it's all geared towards creating funds to be able to bring us one step closer to future free from breast cancer, which is great from one point of view because it gives people hope. But in terms of the actual tangible support in the here and now, our role is to put people in touch with the right people to help them.
Which would be Macmillan, as you said. Macmillan is a great organization, and something that would be the appropriate. But thank you for enlightening our listeners on that. It was something that I was going to forget to mention, is because this will be personal for a lot of people, and listening and watching, and so it's important for them to have the resources to be able to use. Which brings me on to the question that I think will be on so many people's minds, and it's specifically breast cancer awareness, because more and more, and I'm glad that the healthcare system is catching up. I'm glad that we are focusing more on awareness and prevention rather than just treating things. I'm glad that the preventative aspect has come about. But what would you say, Mark, are some of the main symptoms or things that people should look out for early on? And I think, well, I hope our listeners, if our listeners don't know this, with cancer, early detection is absolutely vital. And please, I'll say that again. Early detection is absolutely vital. It's so important. What are some signs that people can look out for, especially in the early stages, or not in the early stages, if it's still, if it's a bit further along, but it's still something that needs to be actioned?
Yes, you're right, Jose, that screening and awareness are so important. it's women will get invited for a mammogram screen by on the NHS between the ages of 50 to 71, and it's actually quite striking that up to 1 million people, that's about 1/3, don't take up that opportunity for screening, which is at the
Wow.
moment the best early warning sign we have. And then self-checking is important. We have an informational leaflet for self-checking, and that's basically to encourage people to do regular self-breast examination and look for any changes they may see, any discoloration, the leakage from the nipple, any lumps would be something to look out for. Any changes there. And then if they do see changes, it's recommended to be checked by the GP. In fact, I think it's about 8% of changes or even lumps are not actually cancerous. They may just be benign or cysts. So, but it's a good thing for your GP to have that checked out. So, yeah, screening and self-awareness is really important. Before we hopefully in the future will have additional tests for screening, but breast cancer is at least one cancer that has a screening test available, and that is the mammogram screening. So prevention is obviously better than therapy and better of a cure, prevention in the first place. And research into ways we can prevent breast cancer has been, say, an interest of the charity for nearly 33 years, going right back to the research of Dr. Leatham, looking into cancer cells and different biology and sugar molecules on their surface. Don't have time to go into that, but what's striking statistic is that up to a third, 25 to 30% of breast cancer, that would be primary breast cancer cases, are predicted to be avoidable with better diet and lifestyle choices, which is a surprising number. That's something like 18,000 cases, because there's between 56 and 60,000 cases of breast cancer diagnosed each year in the UK. So we do have, it ties in really well with our sports and challenges. Keeping people active is that prevention is so important, and even a modest amount of exercise, such as walking, has shown to be beneficial to reduce the risk of breast cancer, as well as other cancers and general health, as I'm sure most will be aware. But there's now fascinating research going on to the whys and the how that happens. Exercise and good diet is something we can all do. It doesn't guarantee people won't get breast cancer, but it can, for any individual, it can reduce the risk. So that's a big part of our sort of messaging, and say fits well with our ambassadors who like to keep fit. And doesn't mean you have to run marathons. Running isn't everybody, but as Rich has talked about, walking is accessible for most people. So
Yes, yes. Thank you. Thank you for explaining kind of some of the risk factors and some of the preventative factors there. Well, what are the risk factors that you would say would be um, in place? Because the preventative factors certainly would be the exercise, but risk factors, I misspoke there. The risk factors would be
well, there's risk factors that we can't modify, and the main risk factors for breast cancer are being female, although men can get breast cancer too. Maybe we can touch on that later. And age. For any given cancer, there's a trend. As we get older, our bodies accumulate changes and little faults that can lead to cancer. So those are things we can't change. There are others. The genetic background can influence the risk, and many will probably be aware of genes called BRCA1 and BRCA2, have been nicknamed the Angela Jolie gene. That has led to some people having elective prophylactic mastectomies if they have a family history. They can increase the risk, but so there's a number of known genes that are known to increase the risk, some more strongly than others. And there will be genetic factors that are still being unraveled that will apply to some people without us knowing exactly how. However, the vast majority of breast cancers don't have an obvious direct genetic link. So that leaves us down to, and then there's certain hormonal risk factors that can play a role. But in the modifiable risk factors, say the diet and lifestyle changes is something everyone can do to reduce their risk.
Interesting, interesting. That is something that maybe I misheard, but men can get breast cancer as well. I thought it was just
Yeah, it's
something that women could get.
there's about 1 in 100 cases of breast cancer in the UK, and that's broadly similar in other similar countries.
Wow.
1 in 100 cases happen in men, so it's about 400 cases per year in the UK.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, so we have a campaign, Don't Forget the Men, and we have an informational leaflet. And yeah, we have some case studies on our website of men that have suffered a diagnosis of breast cancer. So yeah, men need to be aware too. It's clearly not as common as it is in females, and it's sort of not in the top 25 cancers, the most common in men, but it
All
does happen.
right. Yeah. Okay.
And the mechanisms are broadly similar, and the treatments would be similar to the most common type of breast cancer. That would be the estrogen-driven type of breast cancer, which is about 70% of the female cases. So yeah, it does happen in men too.
Wow. Well, that's eye-opening for me, and I mean, you learn something new every day, and certainly it will be eye-opening for our viewers and ear-opening for our listeners to know that men can get it too, so they should also get checked. So, which leads me on very, very quickly just to ask, in a man, what would I be looking out for in terms of
It would be so very very similar to
very similar?
females. It's any discoloration, the nipple area, lumps, any leakage,
Yeah.
any painful areas of discharge. It's quite well treated in men with usually with sort of having the lump removed, a lumpectomy. Very occasionally, it can be more serious because of the lack of awareness that it's not. People dismiss it because they don't think it's common in men, which it isn't, but it can happen. And occasionally, some of our case studies have sort of been dismissed by their doctors because they've not experienced it either, not seen it before. So, but I think awareness is improving, and it's something we play our part in, say, with an information leaflet that is available at our events.
Yes, thank you, Mark. One thing that my viewers and my listeners might not realize is that I do have lupus and epilepsy. We just had a lovely episode with Epilepsy Action last week, where we talked all about Purple Day. So I do have these conditions, but specifically with lupus, and this is why I asked that question. I had to check if I heard you right about men having breast cancer because I am one in 10 men who get lupus. So I am one of those rare. I mean, from what you said, it's like 1 in 100. But anyway, whatever the statistics are, I'm also in the rare category. So for me, I'm very at this point, like I'm covering all my bases and I'm asking all the questions. I'm asking all the questions, and that is what really informs our podcast, the strategic health check, and why we have health charity leaders on here and that's what it's all about. And you obviously just mentioned the men getting breast cancer, and how that's a possibility. Rich, would you like to expand on that in any way, from your
Yeah,
perspective?
yeah, for sure. And I think it's really interesting what you say about almost leaving no stone unturned, in that it's a lot of what we found has been successful with our fundraising strategies is sometimes just thinking outside the box and thinking there are people affected by breast cancer who you might not necessarily think of as the first people that come to mind. So yes, as you've touched on and Mark has outlined, it's less likely that a man is going to get breast cancer, but the number of men that will have loved ones that have gone through a breast cancer diagnosis and journey is massive, in terms of mums, aunts,
Yeah,
daughters, cousins,
yep,
etc. So we have a campaign called Don't Forget the Men, as Mark touched on. Now,
okay.
this year we've partnered with another charity, Andy's Man Club, who are all about male mental health, and getting men together to talk. And we've come up with a initiative called Ride to Thrive. And the idea behind it is that during the month of June, people attempt to ride a combined distance of 85 miles, one for each man who sadly loses their life having had breast cancer each year in the UK. And the whole idea behind it is to give men not only a way of raising awareness that breast cancer affects men, either through diagnosis or through supporting a loved one, but also enabling them to get a mechanism to get together and talk and to be helpful for their mental health. Now, it's called Ride to Thrive, but we are really aware that not everyone likes riding a bike. And so we've kind of packaged it up as there being no right or wrong in terms of how you choose to thrive. So we thought, you know what, you could dive to thrive, so you go for a swim. You could stride to thrive, you can go for a walk. You get the gist. But effectively, what we're kind of aiming for is something where people, and it doesn't have to just be men, people get together and they do something that's good for their physical well-being, as Mark touches on. That's really important for prevention as well as anything else, but also for their mental well-being and for supporting each other and helping each other through the trials and tribulations of life, which can include breast cancer.
Well, lots of eye-opening content there, and I was getting goosebumps just because I have lost family members to this, so I just don't even get me started. But this is why we need to have these conversations, and this is why awareness just is everything. Um, Now, back to you, Rich. How can people, would you say, find out more information or on how to get involved from a fundraising perspective? And Rich, from our discussions, like I want to be one of those people. Getting involved, I want to help out. So, people like me, listeners and viewers, thank you for listening to up until now. But now is the good part. Now, how can we support against breast cancer? Because this is the main thing.
Thank you. Yeah, so we've touched on it a number of times, but our website is againstbreastcancer.org.uk. You can find various ways to support us on there. You find out about upcoming events, like what Mark was touching on earlier with the research conference, but also how you can get involved in fundraising. Because I appreciate for your listeners and viewers, it's a lot to take in a short space of time, and it's a really sort of useful resource to check back on. We're also active on social media. So if you just simply search Against Breast Cancer on Facebook or LinkedIn, you can find us there. Alternatively, if you search for @Against Breast Cancer 1 on Instagram, you can follow us there again, where your listeners and viewers will be able to find up-to-date regular updates on what we're doing. It sounds a long way off at the moment. I know we're in March, and the last thing I want to do is wish the summer away. But we have got Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October, where we've got lots of exciting things planned. So yeah, do keep an eye out on our social media platforms for updates, as well as our website.
Yes, that was, and I will repeat this and on the website and everything. But you said Against Breast Cancer one on Instagram, right?
That's right. Yeah,
And it's findable with its name on LinkedIn and Facebook, right?
that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you, Rich. Now, so that is how people can find out more information and how they can get involved from a fundraising perspective. But what about from your point of view and from your remit, Mark? How about finding more about it in terms of research?
Well, if people want to hear more about the research, they can. We give regular updates on the website, newsletters, as well as the aforementioned um, open day in Southampton with laboratory tours and the research conference. We also have where it can be quite specific, but we have on our website a take part in a research study page. Um, we have a lot of requests where people can take surveys to give their opinions and help influence ongoing breast cancer research, breast cancer care. This may be from, we have some psychology students that are looking to hear about the impact for breast cancer diagnosis and how people feel they are getting the right sort of care or not. Sometimes looking for people that have had a certain treatment. So that's a part where people can get involved if they're willing to. There's usually a small sort of honorarium payment for people's time, but this is supporting from young careers research students through to clinical trials. So that's where people can get involved if they've so usually if they've had a breast cancer diagnosis or potentially cared for somebody who has. So, and if anyone wants to get further involved in the work, charity, the research, and having a voice, we do have research advocates who, again, somebody with experience of breast cancer or caring for someone who has, who can bring different types of expertise, and that helps us bring in patient voice to the important topics, and that can lead towards influencing what type of research we support with our grants. So it's important to feed that back to research plans, and it's something, if we have grant applications, we get the view of everyone in the Against Breast Cancer family, from the trustees who oversee the charity to our scientific advisory board, who are world leading experts in research, as well as mentioned, the research advocates. So from that side of research right through the fundraising, there's ways for people to get involved. So
It seems like there are, and my last question, because we have touched on so many different topics, and I've learned so much, and our listeners and viewers have learned so much, and will continue to do so on this podcast. Um, I think that the well, it might be the most basic question that I could ask, but it might just be the most important. It might just save someone's life. What are key dates that people should be aware about? Because these are important days of the year that events could take place that could change everything leads to, and I've seen this in my own life with my health and my health battles and with epilepsy. Like it's just these chains of events. So I think dates are so important. It might not be the most research depth question, and we've learned so many interesting things, but it's so important. If we get down to the nitty gritty or whatever the expression is, what are some key dates that people should be aware of?
So I'll just quickly touch on a few from a fundraising perspective and then pass over to Mark for the research stuff. But I think the key takeaway dates for us would be the Breast Walk Ever, which takes place on the 14th of June, that we touched on earlier. That's in Hampshire. The 4th of July, we've got our annual Paint Abingdon Pink event in Abingdon, which is in Oxfordshire. And in October. So the duration of October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We are doing a number of different things. We have a recycling specific campaign that we're working on at the moment, that is a campaign where we're looking to get more and more people understanding our bra recycling scheme and making that really accessible and really easy to do really quickly. And like bring a really amazing mechanism to bring people together and get them not only having to fundraise but also being able to do a bit of a clean of things that they've been wanting to get rid of for a long time. And also
I can relate.
during say again.
I can relate. Wanting to get rid of.
And also during October, we offer a free will writing scheme as well. So if you wrote your will with Octopus Legacy, who we partner with during the month of October, that can be done through us and through Octopus Legacy for free. So if that's something you've been putting off, do consider doing it during the month of October.
Great, great. Thank you, Rich. Mark, any research specific dates?
Well, it's a shorter list than Richard. This year, the Against Breast Cancer Research Conference to be held at Oriel College, Oxford, in its 700th anniversary year. So we're very honoured to have Oriel hosting us for our research conference. That's 23rd of June this year, Tuesday, 23rd of June. And then on awareness, I would say particularly if people are age 50 to 71, females have the option to have a mammogram screen and they have not. The best date was yesterday. The second best date would be today. So do get screened and checked if you can. Or if not, do people of any age do the self-awareness, self-checking.
Absolutely. Well, thank you both so much for your time, Rich and Mark. The website is againstbreastcancer.org.uk. We've touched on so many specific topics. It's been fascinating to hear from both of you. You're both so devoted to your work, and you can just tell that because you can spot a fake a mile away, and you really do know your stuff, and you are passionate about it, and um I think my listeners, my viewers are going to get a lot of value out of listening to this episode. As ever, we will have some strategic homework for you, which will be available at strategichealthcheck.com. If you have any suggestions about future partnerships, then email listen@strategichealthcheck.com. But you can listen to now, this is now the 10th episode, strategechealthcheck.com. Book a free discovery call, gainstrategic.co.uk for your charity. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, wow, there's just some cool ideas here. Maybe I would want to, partner with Jose and get involved that way. But thank you both so much for your time. And let's keep in touch. I hope everything goes really well, especially this first event on the 23rd. I hope it all goes well. And thank you both very, very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Nadine.
Thanks.